May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, preserving the legacy of Joshu Sasaki and those whose paths crossed his, and anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable and free from economic hardship and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So today, Saturday, I tried to have a guest. So I have a piece that I wrote and was with the Tassajara Stories. Because when I left to go study Japanese in Monterey, and then Bob Halpern and this woman Mary and I were traveling back to Texas, we dropped by L.A. and interviewed Joshu Sasaki, and Joshu Sasaki is our guest today. But that won't fit in Tassajara Stories, so I'm taking a number of the sort of profiles of people that really concentrate on. I'm taking everything out except the stuff that has to do with Tassajara. There's a little bit has to do with Tassajara there, and I might add that, but I don't know. I got so much more material than I need. I think it's just better to have it for, say, a collection of profiles on people from back then. See if I get to that. So anyway, this is a piece written about our meeting with Joshu Sasaki. The whole interview is on Cuke.com. If you just write Joshu Sasaki, or probably just Sasaki, in the site search box on the homepage of Cuke.com, then you'll get it. Oh, hey, and before I start, I just want to give a heads up to our sponsor, which is you, dear listener. And if you feel so moved, appreciate you moseying over to Cuke.com homepage and click on that little donate word, and that'll take you to the donate page, and then it's real easy. It'll show you how to send a check or make a PayPal donation or become a PayPal subscriber for as little as $1 a month. It's easy to do, it's fun, and it's a refreshing, rewarding experience. So right after our pause to meditate, we'll get into this piece on Joshu Sasaki. So when you hear the bell, if you feel like it, hit pause and meditate or whatever for as long as you wish, and when you're ready to come back, hit unpause, and we'll be here to hit the bell and get going into our next guest, which is the late, great Joshu Sasaki. Sasaki. In December of 1969, after we'd driven out of Monterey, Bob Halpern, our friend Mary, and I dropped by Joshu Sasaki's Cimarron Zen Center in L.A. His group had grown larger, then with residential facilities. I said we wanted to interview Sasaki for the San Francisco Zen Center's Windbell. I just made that up on the spot so we could see him. It worked. Before long, we sat at a table across from Sasaki, 2 translators at his side, James Yamamoto and George Stanichi, who mainly just listened. Stanichi, Stanicci. That's not how any Japanese name would be spelled, but I find him with both parents born in Japan in a record of Japanese Americans who were in internment camps during World War II. Sasaki started off with something to say about the upcoming interview. He didn't want to get superficial questions like a reporter would ask. Don't ask me why I came here and when did I come. Don't waste my time. Ask about the Dharma. Bob looked at Roshi and asked, "Why did you come to America? And when was that?" I piped in. Without hesitation or complaint, Sasaki answered those questions and more. He arrived in 1962. His sponsor, Dr. Harmon, had written Myo Shinji, requesting a Zen teacher, and they'd sent Sasaki, though he'd thought about it for 6 months before agreeing. He tried to study English, but said he couldn't muster the courage to use it, compared his reluctance to put into learning English to Americans' hesitancy to learn Zen. But he thought, well, I'll do what I can and maybe become friends with a few of them. There were difficulties at first, but he said that due to the early constant assistance of Dr. Harmon especially, problems were solved. His center grew. He'd had to change locations several times due to neighbor complaints about traffic, chanting, and bell sounds, and his acceptance of hippies. But Zen welcomes everyone, he said. So in 1968, they settled into Cimarron Street, where the center still resides. As opposite as his style was to Suzuki, some of what he said was quite similar. He said he never had a plan. People come and practice. If there's a problem, we'll deal with it. This isn't a business. I don't want to build temples and expand. No other Japanese priests wanted. Better to develop local people. At first, he only taught Zazen. Things picked up after he added koans and sanzen, which is called doksan and Soto Zen. A one-on-one meeting with the teacher, he said there were 2 types of students, the ones interested in hearing lecture and knowing history, and those interested in Zen training and practice. The latter I will give koans, and they can confront me in sanzen. True Zen of necessity includes sanzen and koan practice. Without sanzen, he stressed, it's just curiosity Zen, adding that if we were merely journalists, he'd not say all this, but we are academics. But are we academics and journalists or students? You might be dead in 1 hour, so I wish a correct answer from you. Bob said, we came here because there is a Buddha here. I'm not a Buddha. And he quoted Baso, not mind, not Buddha. Then added, I don't like people who are looking for Buddha here. You're hooked on Buddha and must be free from even such ideas. Entangled in that word, Buddha, you will be no more free than a believing Zen student. You must be free to accept or throw away Buddha. The attitude should be that you will neither affirm nor deny Buddha or God from any such notions. I wondered if he remembered Bob, who'd sat with him before coming to Tassajara. Didn't seem like it. He went on to say that it's difficult here because people in the U.S. need a symbol such as a God Savior or a Buddha, and it appeared that we came seeking Buddha like we were Christians seeking God, that as long as you depend on someone from Japan, your Zen will remain weak. Maybe all that can be expected was that people here would be just interested in doctrine and theory. I wanted to protest that we weren't theists, but thought better of it. The translators suggested we might bring it to an end then, but we kept asking, and Sasaki kept answering. Bob asked if Sasaki planned to continue the Japanese form of separation of priests and lay. Sasaki answered there's no difference between priest and lay, men and women. He named it Zen Center on purpose rather than Zen Temple with its hierarchy, and said cats and dogs can come practice there. I welcome all, particularly hippies. He wouldn't transplant the Japanese hierarchy, but would include practices and disciplines that were appropriate. I asked, like what? And he said, come join us in a session and you'll find out. Sasaki said what he was doing was teaching Zazen and thinking 24 hours a day how to make people enlightened Zen students, whether by pulling their noses, hitting them, or pushing them. I am just combing my brain trying to find ways and means to produce such students. I asked if he saw any other problems with Americans. He said the Western mind was well developed at dealing with data and had produced wonders in the field of science, philosophy, and psychology, yet there's a split between subject and object. Zen has no object or goal. However, Zen does include everything from sutra study to journalism. I'd been studying Japanese for the prior half year and was just starting to look at the Japanese for some of our chants. I asked about translating the chants. He said that since it has no meaning at all, it's not necessary to translate sutras for chanting. The key was to manifest oneself. Better to do them in a loud voice, he said, and imitate sounds of animals than chanting without belief that you're manifesting yourself. Whatever you do, believe that you're manifesting yourself. It's better not to think that one must understand what one reads. While not fully understanding, adhere faithfully to what one is doing, chanting or chores, and realize one is manifesting oneself in these activities. One must also go into the secular world to earn a living. Then the much more full type of Zen practice begins. One of the problems of Zen doctrine is that one is apt to become isolated from the world or social responsibility. Since the self doesn't exist, one can harmonize with whatever situation and environments one finds oneself in. We kept asking questions, asked if he was getting tired. He said he could answer this type of question half asleep, suggested some high-class 12-year-old Scotch would help. Towards the end of our time with him, Sasaki said, I am very appreciative of Tassajara and the San Francisco effort towards helping the American people, and I'm impressed. He left that day quite pleased and up, a distinctly different experience than the prior visit. I had expected and was almost looking forward to receiving a bashing like before, but the meeting was friendly and comfortable with no nonsense, encouraging edges, profound and inspiring, and as Sasaki had suggested when we first met, I do often go, who am I, when driving a car. So thank you very much, Joshu Sasaki, for allowing us to interview you back in 1969. Well, that's pretty late. Might have. I think it might have been early December. Really, it was an interesting. I had these two visits with him, and the first one was like going to a rival high school with everybody just putting down Zen Center and Dick Baker and me and Soto Zen and everything, and him kicking us out and saying, if you want real Zen, come here. If you want play Zen. And the second one, him showing, great appreciation of what we were doing. And then later I heard that he really enjoyed meeting Richard Baker and liked him. So, he grew up, we grew up. And anyway, I enjoyed meeting him. He lived to be 107. My gosh. Got in a little trouble because of his philandering. But, I don't pay as much attention to that as other people do. It gets to be one of those things where, like Shakespeare's, what he wrote in Julius Caesar, something like the good endures soon forgotten, but the bad, will live, and they will live in infamy through the bad they did. That is really true. That's what I've noticed. Okay. This has been a Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC Puba of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from sleepy Sanur with Dogga Bandita, Feline Cuchita, and dear lovely Katrinka, and we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.